This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Sierra 117, and you're listening to Podcast Unlocked, the world's #1 Xbox podcast. Now, finish this fight. Master Chief, out.
What's happening, friends? Welcome to Podcast Unlocked. It's episode 454. That is a palindrome. This one for July 28th, 2020. I'm Ryan McCaffrey, joined as always by Miranda Sanchez.
Hello.
And special guest, welcoming him back here, Cicero Holmes. Good to see you, my friend.
Palindrome, bam, for everybody.
Nice.
All
Double
right.
duty there. I like it.
Right.
Destin Legary and Brandon Tyrell on assignment this week. They're figuring out a bunch of other future coverage things for IGN. So happy to have Miranda and Cicero joining me. There is plenty to talk about. Before we get rolling, I want to say a quick thank you to everybody who watched our live coverage last week. We had tremendous numbers, just great tune-in numbers. Thank you to Paris Lilly for coming in and adding some awesome enthusiasm and knowledge and expertise to our panel. It was great to have him. And yeah, like I said, Cicero's back. So the Discovery Debrief podcast, all of your Star Trek fan needs and desires get discussed there at DSC Debrief on Twitter. Cicero, anything else you want to plug at the top before we get rolling?
Put respect on its name. Yeah, we're getting ready for Lower Decks in less than a month, and then Discovery Season 3. Other things that I want to plug: Rivals of Waterdeep, my D&D show, D&D show that I do with also friend of the show, Sharif Jackson, and a whole host of other people. Check them out on Sundays at twitch.tv/D&D, Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. Actual play tabletop D&D podcasts that you get to watch and see people play and do stupid voices. Awesome.
Oh, good times. All right. So obviously the showcase was last week. We've been waiting for that moment for many, many months. And I kind of wanted to revisit this with you guys before we get into the rest of the news for the week. Because I think, we had a live show last week, which is fun because it's immediate in the moment reactions. But, it's good to sit with things too and kind of think about it more as time goes on. And I've certainly kind of evolved my thinking overall on the showcase. I'm still super happy with it, but I did want to kind of circle back and pose a couple of questions to you guys. So Cicero, I'll go your way first. So how do you feel about the showcase now that you've been sitting with it for a while?
You know what? I kind of feel very similar to the way I felt prior to the showcase, and it only confirmed the feelings that I had going into the showcase as well, which is that it's all about Game Pass.
Yeah.
And the thing that Microsoft didn't necessarily have to worry about me as a consumer. I'm already in the ecosystem. I already have Game Pass Ultimate. I was already planning on buying a Series X. So all of those things worked out in my favor. But whether or not they did enough to get new gamers, to entice new gamers to the console and the platform, the ecosystem, and honestly, I think that's how the conversation should really be described, as the ecosystem of Microsoft and Xbox gaming going forward. And whether or not they did enough to entice new gamers to subscribe to their ecosystem is up for debate.
Miranda, how about you? Where do you feel now a few days later?
So I completely agree with Cicero. I personally enjoyed it. Obviously, we do have Game Pass. We are connected, but completely building on that point, I don't think that they really offered anything that would pull people in who aren't already interested. There wasn't any snappy game that was just like, man, you got to get this. Like, there are hints of games that I think they will have in the future that could be that.
Avowed, Fable.
Yeah, exactly. Avowed's like the big one that I'm thinking about, actually.
Right, sure.
Because Fable is kind of known quantity, and we love Fable. But for the people who maybe don't necessarily care about the humor of Fable, like Avowed could be that showcase game that Microsoft will really want to lean on in the future. I think a big mistake is that we keep looking into the Chief, like Master Chief and Halo, to be like this big front and center piece for Microsoft, and it is. But we can't just rely on that to like draw in new people, right? Like it's a known quantity again, and we like Master Chief and Halo, but for people who don't care about that, like they're not going to care about Xbox otherwise if that's like your lead, especially for like immediacy. That being said, I did really enjoy it. I liked a lot of the games that they showed. We talked a lot about that last week, is like the variety of games. I really like that. Again, it's all couched in Game Pass. Like what a crazy deal. We've talked about it like a billion times. And I guess like my feeling is of what Microsoft did here is the same with Sony though. Like I don't feel like Sony's given me any reason to have like a PS5 at launch. And I feel like I have reasons to have an Xbox Series X at launch because I already like Microsoft and I already like everything I'm going to get. Obviously, I'm going to play Halo Infinite on the best version possible, which is probably going to be, on Series X. But I feel like they're still lacking that hook for people who aren't interested in the ecosystem that Microsoft offers.
Would you say, Miranda, so I'm just going to throw this out as a thought, at which I'll tell you whether I agree with it or not in a second, but do you think that showcase sold you a Game Pass subscription, but not necessarily a Series X?
That is a great way. That's a great question. Probably. I think if there were games that I wanted and I already have an Xbox and I don't have Game Pass for some reason, then yeah, absolutely. Because we know a lot of them are going to come back to the Xbox One X and everything else. So since the current gen is going to get a lot of the games that are going to come out on Series X, then yeah, like I have the hookup already, or if I have a good PC.
Cicero, how about you? Is that
I mean,
a reasonable assessment, or how do you feel about that?
I kind of think that's the secret sauce, right? It's that that Game Pass itself is, and I think this is intentional by Microsoft, that Game Pass is the console, if we can look at it as if we can look at it in an antiquated way of thinking. The content delivery system is the console itself, is the physical hardware, but it's all about the subscription. And that's what's important. That's what Microsoft is selling, and that's honestly, that's Microsoft's bread and butter, is selling software subscriptions. They've rolled Microsoft Office into a subscription service. The operating system, Windows, is essentially a subscription service, and now their gaming platform is a subscription service. And now what we're seeing is the console just being the same way that a PC is a content delivery service for your operating system and your internet browser and gaming and whatever else that you may wind up doing on that particular platform. The console itself, the video game console, is becoming just a content delivery system for their service, whether it be via Project X Cloud or Game Pass Ultimate. And quite honestly, that is the future of gaming.
Yeah. Now, for whatever it's worth, Gabe Newell, the billionaire co-founder of Valve, and to be fair, a former Microsoft employee, that's how he made his money. He was on the Excel team in the early days, but started Valve 24, almost 25 years ago. But Valve's been pretty platform agnostic. Well, Gabe, turns out, has been stuck in, I can't remember if it's Australia or New Zealand since the pandemic started. He hasn't been able to get home. So he was actually on a news program down there, and the clip came from the Xbox Series X Reddit, where they asked him, oh, well, this holiday, PS5 and Series X, do you have a preference? And he straight up just said, Series X all the way. So for what it's worth, the co-founder of Valve thinks that the Series X is the better console, as far as presumably he's looking at it from a more technical and development perspective. But I thought that was pretty interesting. But there is plenty more to talk about with this, and I want to talk next about Halo.
May I say this? if I may. So
please.
I've come up with an analogy between the two philosophies. Game Pass, Microsoft and Game Pass is like Netflix. You buy the service and there's going to be a lot of content on there. You're a TV watcher, you're a movie watcher, you get Netflix, and there are some terrible shows on Netflix. There are some fantastic shows on Netflix, but most of the stuff is kind of in the middle. It's, if I want to watch something, I'll have something to watch. Sony is more like the Criterion Collection. There are very few fantastic, options and movies that are available, but you have to pay a premium for them. They're phenomenal, but you may get one or two a year and that's it. Yeah. So if you are a capital G gamer and you just want games to play, this is where Game Pass shines, because it just provides you the opportunity to play lots of games in the middle. That AA, we bemoan the loss of that AA, game space, whether it was either indie or it was AAA, super expensive games. And Game Pass gives the space for those games in the middle, guys. Yeah. Like that is the place where we're going to see new titles that can become giant tentpole franchises. And that's the brilliance of the service, and I'm so glad it's here.
Yeah, I have seen some very strange, let's call it mental gymnastics by, again, like the loud minority, super zealot fanboy corners of the world that are very much not the majority of people, that have somehow tried, I've seen this over the last several days since the showcase happened, of trying to basically say that Game Pass was a bad thing and that they'd rather just pay $60 for the masterpiece class Sony games, as if those are mutually exclusive things. Right. Like if Sony, if they wanted to make a business case for it and build their business around it, Sony could launch PlayStation Pass tomorrow if they wanted to and have all their amazing games in it. And, if they find a way that works for them financially, they would do it. And Microsoft, if Game Pass would still exist if there were Sony first-party quality games out today, and hopefully those games are going to exist in the future, whether it's Avowed, whether it's Everwild, whether it's Fable, whether it's all of the above, hopefully. Right. But that's been a very ridiculous argument I've seen going around, that those two things can't coexist together and be the same thing. So yes. I don't know. It's very odd to me sometimes.
Okay.
Sorry to derail you.
No, it's great. I mean, it's a good thing to talk about, because I mean, yes, it's true. Microsoft has not had the 10 out of 10 caliber games really arguably since Halo 3. Halo 3 was probably the last pretty well universally agreed masterpiece level game that first party has put up. There have been some 9s, there have been some great stuff. I mean, Sunset Overdrive. Absolutely. I mean, Miranda and I both love Gears 4 and 5.
Yeah. The Ori series.
Ori, definitely. Yeah. I mean, maybe I get Forza Horizon. That series is probably the closest thing Microsoft has, but because, and this is fair or not, because it's a car game, it doesn't get put in that same group that the Last of Us and the God of War, and maybe fairly so. I mean, it's just sort of a different, it's apples and oranges, but yeah, like if Microsoft had those games and they're trying to build them now, they would still have Game Pass, and it would be even more of an incredible deal. But anyway, so my next question for you guys. So Miranda, you and I got to see Halo ahead of time, really in a vacuum, and it was just our reaction to it. We talked about it a little bit on the show last week live. We liked the gameplay and the direction. I think I'm okay to speak for you here, but we both kind of agreed after, like, yeah, it looked fine, but it wasn't, maybe we were hoping for more as like the Series X flagship title from a visual perspective. Well, online, we all saw the reaction. The game was the reactions ranged from disappointed Xbox fans to cruel, sadistic Sony fans who just wanted to drive the knife in and twist it for a while. And the truth probably lies, as usual, somewhere in between. So I bring this up to say, and I'm going to go to Cicero first here, deserved or not, does Microsoft now have a Halo problem with the Series X?
Deserved, yes, because they knew what they were going to showcase.
Yeah.
But I think it's a problem. It's an overblown problem, in my opinion, because we're still 5 months removed from the launch of this title potentially, and we've got, as they've already said, we've got at least 4 more of these showcases for which they can use, for which they could use 1 or 2 or all 4 of them to highlight the benefits of Halo Infinite. So, I think it's the fact that the internet is really thirsty. So they underwhelmed, definitely. It definitely didn't come out and do the types of things and wasn't as evocative as some of, again, the tentpole games and franchises from Sony. But at the same time, this is just the internet starving for something to talk about and something to argue about. We've been starved for sports, we've been starved for games, and now here's an opportunity. We've seen a thing that everybody was very much anticipating, and there's a lot of nuance in this generation in terms of what next gen means from this generation. The same thing that happened at the beginning of the last generation, where it was like, oh, well, how can I tell between 1080p and 4K? And it's hard to really show that. It was with the HDR and the half step that we actually got to see a difference. Things are brighter, and so now with that nuance, there's just a lot of conversation. But I remain confident that the Xbox team and 343 will come out with showcases and show more about why you should be excited for Halo Infinite in November.
Miranda, does Microsoft, deserved or not, have a Halo problem now?
Some people for sure. I mean, I think it's totally deserved for people to be disappointed. Like as you mentioned, when I came out of that, I was like, whoa, grapple shot's really cool, but also this doesn't look super next gen. Like the idea is cool. It's an evolution, right? It's like as they said, a spiritual what's it called? Reboot. Yes, yeah. That word. So we get that, and you have that feeling there, and you get to see these new systems in place, but the look of it just wasn't there. And that is a little bit of a challenge because you want to be excited for the game, right? But also you're like, but this is Master Chief. Like, obviously, as I was just saying earlier, like Microsoft leans so much on Halo as like a flagship franchise for Xbox, and then you see this, it's like, this isn't exactly what I was expecting. So I know you have this in our notes, but we asked them about ray tracing. Ryan, you specifically asked them, like, what kind of next gen features they're going to have, and they're like, oh, well, ray tracing is not going to be at launch, like it's going to come later. And that feels very weird to me. Like, does Master Chief not deserve ray tracing at launch? Like, what? I mean, I'm sure there's some like constraints there too. I mean, honestly, like I'm trying to give a lot of leniency to a lot of developers or any sort of project right now, just because of like our global situation. It's a little insane. So I mean, that could also have some sort of play into it, but I also don't want to make excuses for other people, or like, because we don't know the situation or why that fell through. But I mean, we know how these communities are. Like, the look of a game is so super important, and when your flagship franchise doesn't have like that next gen look to it, it's a little disappointing. Again, I'm excited for it, but I think if they really wanted to nail it, they had to like showcase something really great. And Ryan, you have some great notes in here that I will let you talk about. It was to like maybe why it didn't come off as flashy as we were expecting it to.
Yes. So, yeah, you're alluding to. I'm totally with you. It's, again, you and I got to see it without any internet chatter to
Yes.
influence what we were seeing, and again, I was giddy watching it because it was just like, Halo is back. This is great.
I was doing
And
this.
yeah, like I did notice the pop in effects, and I did notice that it definitely didn't wow me. But I was first and foremost just happy to see the direction of the gameplay because we didn't know, right? We just thought it might have been open world, and where are they taking it? It is, as you mentioned, we'd been told that it was the spiritual reboot back. That was a Bonnie Ross sitting down with me a year ago talked about that, and so that was really my first thing. I was excited because I liked the direction it seemed to be going from a gameplay perspective. But yeah, I definitely was not wowed by the graphics. And then you're right, when we started talking to Chris and Paul from 343, and just one of the questions I had was, well, okay, you're developing this for two platforms, the old gen and the new gen. That's really never been done before with a big console launch exclusive. So, what next gen features are you taking advantage of? Are you guys doing ray tracing? And I have to say, as soon as Chris said no ray tracing, we'll add it as an update later. I will say it took the wind out of my sails because, to your exact point, Miranda, it's this, by Microsoft's own doing, this is the flagship game. This is the first time they've launched with a Halo on a console since Halo 1. They've been building this up for 2 years and counting. They've been making this the flagship, the centerpiece. And again, yeah, you're so right. Like, this has been a very challenging year and for a million reasons. And game development's hard, and developing for a new platform at launch is hard, and trying to do that from home unexpectedly 80% of the way through the project just compounds the difficulty. But I just don't understand how you don't have every bell and whistle that the Series X is capable of on display on day one in that game. So that I was disappointed in that regard, but I am still very happy about the gameplay direction. I am excited to play it. I'm hoping it cleans up from a visual perspective. And the wizards over at Digital Foundry, all I can do is tip my cap. Those guys, that team, they have just that insane level, and I mean that in the nicest way, of expertise on the technical side of video game graphics and video game construction. So they did a video breaking down that gameplay demo, which I encourage you to go watch on their YouTube channel. But the long and the short of it is, so they were paying particular attention to the lighting. And the long and the short of it is, if this was my interpretation of it, you should watch the video and see for yourself. But it sounds to me like what they were saying was that, in fact, ray tracing could really help improve that sort of perceived flat look that a lot of people were left with from that Halo Infinite demo. So here's the last question before we move on from this topic for you guys. I'll start with Miranda first. I'm not saying they should or will or are doing this, but just hypothetically, do you think Microsoft should or would delay Halo Infinite away from the launch of the console if it meant cleaning things up, getting ray tracing in there, and making it as visually impactful as possible? Do you think that they would pull that trigger?
No, I don't think so. Even though it's important, I don't think they could do that. I don't think they could justify it.
Interesting. I mean, that's the thing. That's why I love the discussion. There is a case to be made either way. Cicero, where are you on this? Again, purely hypothetical here.
Right. So there is zero chance of them delaying their flagship title to not launch with their console. But probably they should, because if you're saying this is what next gen is, and if the first bullet point of next gen is ray tracing, which in a lot of the conversations, that's exactly what it is. Then, and you don't have it in the thing that you're, like, imagine, Ryan, you're a Tesla guy, right? And you went out and you got yourself a Tesla Model S, the P100D.
Big in my language.
Yeah, and so you sit someone in the car and you're like, oh man, this car can go super fast, go in ludicrous mode. Okay,
Right.
well, can we do a ludicrous? Oh no, I can't. There's an update that's coming in a few weeks. Like, why am I in the damn car? Why am I in the car?
Yeah, that is an excellent analogy. Yeah, I cannot argue with that at all.
But it's still a Tesla.
Right.
It's still a Tesla. It's still electric. It still goes very fast. It still has autopilot. It still has all these things. But the one thing that I said it could definitely do, the one thing that, you were in the car to witness is not there. It kind of ruins the breakfast a little.
So all I will add to this is, again, I know I refer back to this Phil interview from this show from the early in the pandemic a lot, but he said a lot of interesting stuff in there that's still relevant. And one of the things he said, I'm paraphrasing here, you can go back and watch the episode if you're curious. He did say that no one game, not even Halo, because I specifically said, even Halo, no game would hold up the console launch.
Right.
So that tells me that if there was an in case of emergency break glass scenario, like, Halo, if they thought that it would be detrimental to the long-term health of the franchise, I think he would do it. I think Bonnie Ross and Phil would have very long, difficult meetings. And I do think it's possible. Again, we're only speaking in hypothetical. I'm not calling for its delay. I'm not, we don't know, sitting here, as all we know is what we were shown last Thursday. We don't know where the game is at. We don't know how much, work they have left, if there's room in the schedule. For all we know, I mean, I guarantee you they had meetings on Friday. I'm sure there were meetings on Friday, even Thursday, after. But I think it is very possible that they may now seriously prioritize that ray tracing update and work big time overtime. And I'm not saying I agree with that. Crunch is a major problem. I'm not looking for anybody to risk their health or their work-life balance for it, but it would not surprise me if suddenly the ray tracing update finds its way into the launch version of the game. So
I think that it would be more likely for Halo to be delayed if Game Pass didn't exist. If this was a game that people were going to pay, full price for, whatever that price point may be, and they, we were in the legacies model of how we consumed games. But because this game is part of a service, so essentially it is also a service, they can push out updates for it, and people can feel like, all right, well, I didn't spend my $60 on top of the price of the console, or my $70 on top of the price of the console to purchase this game, and this game isn't done. People will still kind of complain about that, but they'll have less room to complain about it because it's part of a service and it can be updated, much like Sea of Thieves, much like State of Decay 2. Sea of Thieves is a fantastic game now, and when it launched, it was very much less of a game than it is today. And Halo has less leeway to do that, but they given themselves some grace with the way that they're pushing that content out.
Good point all around. Now, to sort of start to wrap this up, I wanted to mention, it bummed me out seeing the reaction to Halo. Again, not that some of it wasn't deserved, but to the point of, I do feel like it cast a dark shadow over the rest of the conference, which the longer I sit with the conference, again, I've thought a lot about Halo, as we just spent, 10, 20 minutes talking about it. But I do think the rest of the conference was really good. I mean, was there a killer launch game? Was there? I mean, yeah, the trailers, a lot of them were CG. They were early, but really, like, I thought the rest of the show was super great, and it kind of bummed me out that I feel like Halo kind of cast a dark shadow over the rest of it. I mean, Fable and Avowed, and I thought Everwild looked great again, and there was really a lot to like in there. Cicero, what jumped out at you outside of Halo from this?
I mean, everything did. Like, everything looked like something I'd at least try. And again, like, I said this to you offline, that I was gonna sound more like Rudy Giuliani. I know that's a curse word, but a noun and verb 9/11. I'm really gonna be a noun and verb Game Pass. The fact that, like, I can look at these games and say, I can give this a try because I know that I'm part of this subscription service that will give me no penalty minus data caps on my ISP, is the only thing that's stopping me from downloading this game and giving it a shot. And everything that I looked at, there was nothing that I saw that made me say, oh, there's no way in hell that I'm going to at least try that game. And so, I mean, there's no pain in me trying games, and especially with the way things are right now. I've got a group of friends where we play games. We play golf with your friends on Game Pass. So really, it's a beautifully designed game that is programmed horribly, kind of on purpose. What a fun time that game is. But, as we're sitting around and we're talking about it, like, oh, okay, if we're getting tired of this game, we should try this other game that is also on Game Pass. I've got, a bunch of friends that I used to be able to hang out with. I can't hang out with them now, but we can hang out virtually with and do the thing that we love to do, which is play games, because we've got this subscription service. And when I watched the video, even after Halo, I didn't feel bad, because I knew all of these games I could at least try, and then maybe, I'm guaranteed there are going to be 2 or 3 of those games that I absolutely love. Probably more. But they're all available to me.
Miranda, what, before we move on to the rest of the news for the week, what are you hoping to see Microsoft do next? The July showcase finally has come. It's done. What do you want to see them do next?
Next up, we know that they need to start talking about the pricing of the consoles and any additional features they have not already mentioned that's not necessarily directly tied to games. So if there are any other TV features, whatever it may be, that's the time to talk about it. Not everyone loves it, but people do really like it. Like, I'm one of the few people who really like to connect and voice commands. So I really hope that they talk about that. So I think that, I think they need to, like, kind of bring those features back to the spotlight. It's like, okay, we showed you our big games thing. Like, maybe reiterate this is the list of things we are launching with that are really important. This is what's on Games Pass. And then also, of course, talk about the 2 different models that they're going to have, because we want to know what Lockhart is. Like, I think that's going to be a pretty big deal, honestly. And of course, price is going to be huge. So those are the really big things. And I think they got to present that really well in an exciting way. And
we do expect we personally, we don't know. We expect that at whatever their August thing is. We don't know if that's going to be at Gamescom, if it's going to be at their own, another press conference, another sort of live stream thing ahead of it. We're not sure, but yeah, I'm hoping that $399, if they pull that off for Series X, would be tremendous. Because we know, I do think, like, once both consoles are out and we start to see what is really starting to look more and more like a possibly significant third-party advantage as far as how the games run on the Series X versus the PS5, that I think will help. And I'm sure Phil and the team know that. They know, like, okay, well, stuff's going to look and run better on our platform. So that's going to, the conversation should calm down in the long run. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I'm just going to say, like, Phil, give me that $399 Series X, and let's go with the One X discontinued $249 on the Series S. Word is it's aggressively priced, so
That
we'll
would
see
be
what happens.
super aggressive.
Yes, that would be like Predator level aggressive. I expect to see UI stuff, as Miranda was saying. I'm and my Series X will probably wind up doing the same thing. It's just as much a media player as it is a games player. So yes, I want to know about the media stuff. Obviously, it's going to have the full suite of media options, but I want to know about the UI. What's going to be different? How are they going to bring the UI into the next gen? I used to use my Kinect to turn on my Xbox. Now I use my Alexa to turn on my Xbox. So, how is that integration going to advance? How are those things going to work? What is the price point? What is Lockhart going to be? And what is that price point going to be? Like, I look at these kind of like the MCU. Each one of these showcases is just a portion of what we're going to see. And in November, we know the Avengers movie is finally going to be coming out. And so we watch all of these collectively, and then in November we get to see it all come together.
I like that. That is a lovely analogy. All right. So next up, actually there's a little bit more Halo news to go over here real quick. One, the design lead Jerry Hook confirmed that yes, as promised, split screen co-op will be returning. Though it's going to be 2-player split screen. The game does support 4-player co-op, but only 2 per screen. So you'll need, if you want 3 or 4 player, you'll need at least 2 Xboxes there. So just a sort of a public service announcement. I don't know. Is there anybody in your house that you're going to be co-oping with, Cicero?
Yeah, I'll probably wind up playing with my stepson if he's still here. He just graduated from college. He's getting ready for grad school. So if he's still here and I haven't kicked him out of the house yet, I'll probably play split screen with him. But yeah, like nobody plays 4-player split screen games anymore, even though like the screen real estate is larger now than it's ever been. But like it just doesn't happen. Like I guess you can do it on Mario Kart on the Switch if you broadcast that up, blow that up. But yeah, that's kind of a thing of a bygone era. But having local co-op split screen is going to be cool. I wonder how much that's going to be used. Are you going to be using it? You and your wife?
No, I mean I'm the only one. My daughter's a little young for Halo, so there won't be any split screen going on here.
Start her early, man.
But I will say, like a lot of us do have fond memories of well, for a lot of people, for me it was the early part of my career at Official Xbox Magazine. But a lot of people I to this day hear from where they're like, man, that the 4-player Halo split screen multiplayer in my college dorm was the best. So, but you know what? These days, like all the dorms are wired up, so you could just have 2 consoles, couple of TVs, and you got plenty of action going on there. And then just this thing, I feel like this next thing I'm going to mention, it's already dead, but just in case, just to make sure it is completely squashed and it has no life left in it. There was, because you never know out there. There might be like some friend that tells you, man, no, this is totally true. I swear it's not true. There was a bogus rumor started after the showcase that multiplayer for Halo Infinite wouldn't ship at launch, that the multiplayer would come later. 343's Brian Gerard, who by the way goes all the way back with Halo. He was at Bungie back in at least the Halo 2 days, if not sooner. Brian Gerard took to Twitter to say, quote, "Nothing to see here, folks. This is not true." So just if you've heard it from somebody, no, there will be multiplayer there with you at the launch of Halo Infinite.
Well, right, that would be a thing that they would have to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they would have to delay the game if there was no multiplayer.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can get away with shipping Halo, any Halo ever for any reason, without. I mean, I guess ODST, but even that ship with Firefight.
Right.
So yeah, you got to do it. It's synonymous. Next this week, Miranda, a white next gen Xbox controller with the share button on it. A picture of it surfaced. Somebody went to a party and there it was. They took a picture of it. That came. So the source on that was on Reddit, and I saw it. A lot of people. It went around on Tom Warren from The Verge. It went around on his Twitter. So, Brandon, I don't know if you've seen this, but what do you make of it?
I have seen it. It's weird because the thumbsticks and everything are black. Like the coloring looks wrong to me. Like it doesn't look like it was designed properly. So I could see if this was just like some tester or some people are saying like it could be a prototype. It could be like 3D printed. Like there's a lot of things here that could be up. Also, what are you doing at parties? Excuse me. It looks weird to me just because it doesn't have like that cohesive design to it. But I mean, if it's a white controller, that'd be nice to have another option. I think if maybe the lock card is a different color, it could be cool. Yeah,
that's one theory. Cicero, did you see this thing?
Yeah, I did. In other news, giraffe have feet. So like, the lock card is going to be white. This controller happens to be white.
You're very confident.
Well, I mean, that's all the images that we've seen so far are this smaller
those are
version.
Mock-ups, though.
They are, but I mean, there are lots of mock-ups. So I would like to believe that the images that I've seen about the mock-up of the Lockhart are true.
It's a little GameCube.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's just a.
I would love if it looked like that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just a smaller version of the Series X, colored differently, so you can immediately know which one is which. White is on brand for Microsoft. Half of their consoles have been colored that, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. And so, it's a white controller. It looks like an Xbox controller. As Miranda said, the coloring does seem off. So maybe it is a mock-up design of a controller from, coming up.
Right. So also to point out, like the original white Xbox One controllers that they have. So what looked off to me is because on those, it does have the black detailing, but like the actual Xbox button is black, and then the top has like that top kind of rail that's black. So it kind of complements each other. It's not just a stark white with like some big round black spots on it, which I think looks fine. But it's like lacking some finesse to it, I guess is what I was thinking.
Yeah. I think those are design choices that Microsoft makes with their controllers, so that they have like, so on this controller, I don't know. Yeah, you can't see anything. So the contrast is all off. So they came up with this two-tone thing, but if you remember originally, the original Xbox One controllers, they were all black. So, so there was probably some coloring consistency that they maintained when they had different colored controllers that we just didn't get to see because they were black. And same with the Xbox Series X. These controllers are all black. So, we can't see where they're going to be making stylistic contrasts with the controllers because we haven't seen different color controllers yet.
If they do come out with a different color scheme, I would love to see them get a little bit more creative though. Cause like, did you guys remember like the Phantom White Special Edition?
Yeah.
Like the translucent. It looks so good. Yeah. And I understand that they probably would want to keep that for like, these are like the premiums that we're trying to sell. So you'll buy more controllers. It's like, yes, but also please launch with them because then I will also buy those other controllers later. Like I think my favorite special like edition controller that I have is probably my Sea of Thieves one, just because it just looks, the design is so cool.
With the gold too.
Yes, I feel like you can still design something really cool for those launch editions without having to sacrifice having those like special controllers in the future as well. So I hope they get a little playful with whatever it is. I mean, I don't think they will. We've already seen like the Series X controller, but I can dream.
Go ahead, Cicero.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say, like, we're saving money on Game Pass. They're gonna make their money in Design Labs. So if you want a Series X controller that looks really cool, you can make one. It just costs you $80.
That's right, a little premium on there. Yeah, I think you guys hit on like the Lockhart is you're both so right. It is almost certainly going to be a different color. It's not going to be black. So that seems like one of the highest probability things for what this white controller is. The other option, and again, this is not an original thought, others pointed this out, but it's also possible, given the fact that whoever had this must be a Microsoft employee. It's also possible that it is part of a special edition just for Microsoft employees from people on the Series X team that are having it made, because the Xbox One, they had their I made this edition that they gave out to the team, and it was a white Xbox One, the original VCR Xbox One that was black in retail. So it is possible that it's just going to be like a special thing for employees as well. That's another option there. Next this week, Miranda, this will be up your alley as our resident Call of Duty expert. I don't know if you're also a Doritos expert.
Oh yes, I am.
So Twitter user The Gaming Revolution, that's at The Gaming Revo 3, posted photos of a Doritos bag with on the back of it, it had a double XP game promotion for what is alleged to be this year's Call of Duty game. And what's interesting about that is, the dates that are listed, but also the name of the game, which is listed on there as Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. So I don't know if either of you have had a chance to take a look at it. I think you might be taking a look at it now real quick, but I will say I did look at it. I 100% believe this. This does not seem like a Photoshop fake thing that somebody made. I do suspect this is probably a real bag that somebody got their hands on. And also because that was already the rumored name of the game. So Miranda, I'll go your way first here.
Call of Duty and Doritos, a classic pairing. Just what I'm doing there, and you've got a party. A party I tend to every single year. But, yeah, I could see that being the real thing. That's like kind of been a long rumored thing, is that the Cold War is going to be the next step here. It's very strange also that we still haven't had an official Call of Duty announcement.
Right?
It is almost August, y'all. Where is Call of Duty? I
would have thought it would have been at Sony's event, because they're they got the marketing partnership there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I absolutely see this as being a real thing. I mean, they've got to get stuff in production. I have no idea where they would find this, but yeah, I could definitely see that as being a real deal.
It was a bodega on 48th Street and 2nd Avenue. Poppy had them. So I think I think this is real. When this story came up, it made me think about the fact that we haven't heard anything from Activision at all in this strange summer. And there's no word that they're actually going to be doing their own type of showcase to talk about their game. So, I mean, we've got to see it at some point, right? It's
the thought just occurred to me, Cicero, is they typically do the reveal trailer during one of the big NBA playoff broadcasts where they know they're going to get a lot of viewers.
Sure.
Maybe they're holding it. I mean, obviously the pandemic threw all the plans up into the air, but maybe they're banking on still an NBA playoff game when the league comes back in the bubble pretty soon.
Right. Yeah.
So it could happen.
It definitely could. I mean, yeah, that the Venn diagram of NBA fans and Call of Duty fans is basically a circle. So yeah, I mean that does kind of make sense. So
now also the bag says, if we're believing that this is a legitimate bag, which all three of us do so far, the bag says the promotion starts October 1st, which should be noted. It was pointed out on Twitter. That's when it started last year, and the game came out on October 25th last year.
Right.
So just a literal food for thought. Grab some Doritos. Food for thought. Maybe we are going to see Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War in the end of October, and whether that's just ahead of the consoles or right at the same time, we'll see. But also, that would be possibly the most Ubisoft title that Call of Duty's or Activision have ever done. Call of Duty, Black Ops, Cold War. Just get as many colons and hyphens and dashes in there as you possibly can.
So,
what flavor of Doritos was this bag?
This is
I don't
the
have it in
yellow
front of
black.
me.
I only know. So I love Doritos, but only the nacho cheese ones. So it's the standard. Give me the standard Doritos bag. I will eat all of them in one sitting. It is my go-to. I'm drunk. Give me my Doritos thing. So some things I do want to call out on this tweet though. So the Game Revolution said that these were DM'd to them from an anonymous source for Call of Duty 2020. And was worried about copyrights. I didn't post them until Charlie Intel shared them. So whenever you actually look at the like kind of fine print of it, there's max 160 codes per person. What?
Gotta buy the Doritos. Can't get that double XP. Eat more Doritos.
So, yeah, 40 hours total applies to all redemption. Okay, interesting. So also it's gonna be Call of Duty : Black Ops Cold War if that fine text is to be believed as like the actual title, so there's no dashes in there, thankfully. But so one weird thing that I do want to comment on is that I do hope the double XP program is a lot better this year because last year it sucked. So give me more time with double XP, guys. I don't buy these Doritos and Mountain Dew once a year for nothing. Come on.
All right, next up, just speaking of sticking with Activision here, this is a weird one, and I don't believe this. So I believe the Call of Duty Doritos bag. This one I'm not buying. I want to hear what you guys have to say. World of Warcraft Shadowlands, the expansion for the, of course, long-running MMORPG, has been rated for Xbox Series X in Brazil. This was spotted by Gematsu. The Brazilian ratings board has classified the upcoming World of Warcraft expansion Shadowlands for both PC and Xbox Series X. So I'm thinking no way on this one, Miranda.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really buy this one unless they're going to do something like a la The Sims whenever they bring their games to console and they have to like modify them or do like a special version to like kind of give you the Sim experience, but it's not really The Sims. They've obviously gotten a lot better at that now, but it's still kind of clunky to handle. So knowing what World of Warcraft is, I think it would be very, very clunky if they just said, let's take this PC game and put it on consoles. Granted that Series X will probably also have mouse and keyboard peripheral support like the Xbox One X has, but that's still not like an ideal way to play. Like at that point, just like, what are you doing? Just go find your PC, man. So I don't understand this much at all. If it's true, I hope they do something special. Like I said with Sims, like I remember they did this cool like Sims Pets version, and it was like a very specific modified version for consoles, and I think that's a better way to adapt it rather than just trying to force a PC game on there that is very much optimized for PC, mostly because of the control schemes to a console, which has far fewer buttons.
Right. Yeah, for me, I mean, World of Warcraft's been around since 2004. I think the ship sailed. If this was going to come to console platforms, I think it would have happened already. So I'm not buying this one. Cicero, where do you stand on this one?
Well, you know, I've been team for the Horde for a long time, but I've only been playing on console for the longest. So I'm waiting for this. I've been waiting for this since.
Really?
No, not at all.
I was like, what?
Yeah, you know, like you said, Miranda, I mean, mouse and keyboard support is something that may be available, will most likely be available for the Series X, just like it is for the Xbox One. But why bring mouse and keyboard support to a console for a game that's been around for a decade and a half? If you're a fan of that game, you probably already have a PC that you can play it on. Except if they bring it to Project xCloud, and then you can start playing it in all sorts of weird places. But like, you know, I'd have to put a tinfoil hat on.
You guys,
really can
we put our tinfoil hats on for like a split second? I have a crazy theory.
Okay.
So what if Microsoft comes out and it's like, hey guys, we know you heard about this weird Warcraft thing. By the way, we are optimizing it. So, like, you know how the Switch is a handheld, but also home console, but it's mostly home console, but can be handheld? What if they're like, hey, consoles are pretty much PCs, but this one's all so close to a PC that it might actually be better than your PC. So we're partnering with Valve to like put Steam on Series X, and you can just like plug in some mouse and keyboard, and then you got a PC. But it's also a home console, which are really similar, pretty much the same thing. But if you really want to just use this instead, you can play Dota on your Xbox Series X.
Oh my god!
I would be, that's
so weird.
That's a comfy tinfoil hat. That would be, I would happily wear that one.
You know, I've been stuck in this apartment for a long time. I just want to put my thoughts out into the world. I'll put it in my journal later. I'll be fine.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, we'll see if anything. I mean, keep it in the back of your mind. But I'm not buying this one. But hey, stranger things have happened. You never know. Finally, on the news front this week, before we move to the loot box and the unlock block trivia, we've got about 14 minutes left in the show. Xbox Games with Gold for August, from the first all August long on the Xbox One, is Portal Knights. And then from the 16th to the 15th of September, we have Override Mech City Brawl. From the 360, but compatible on the Xbox One. From the first half of August, you have MX Unleashed, if you like your dirt bike off-road racing action. And then if you like your Earth decimating, or I guess I have to say like Mars decimating first-person shooter action, from August 16th to the 31st, from the 360, but compatible on the Xbox One. Red Faction 2, which is a pretty well-regarded old Red Faction game. Of course, the geomod technology where you could deform the environment there. So we'll see. Guys, I wonder, a lot of chatter about, is gold going to go away and will it all fold under Game Pass? So I wonder if that happens, what happens to games with gold? Will that continue or not?
Yeah. I mean, why not? It like Game Pass has been around for 2 years now, and the gold games are still around. Ultimate has been around for a year, and games with gold is still a thing. So yeah, why not?
I think if they do fold it into Game Pass, though, I don't think it's really necessary. Because then if you're already paying for that subscription, it's just like, we don't need to offer you something extra to validate you having this, because you're already paying for everything. So, but I do like that it has Xbox 360 support still. Like, it just makes my heart a little happy. It's just like, aw, I love the Xbox 360.
I mean, you figure when Microsoft goes to publishers with that stuff and say, hey, we would love to have you in games with gold. Like, how about this older 360 title that is compatible? That's probably a net win for most publishers, because it's renewing interest in the game, and if it's a franchise, renewing interest in the franchise. So, I mean, in the case of Red Faction, I mean, that's all owned by THQ Nordic now. So if they decide to, maybe they might be spinning up a new one. Who knows? So it would seemingly be in their good long-term interest to keep the kind of spark. Keep a little ember of fire burning for the Red Faction IP and for some of these other ones. All right, loot box time. We didn't get a chance to get to this last week, obviously. This one's very on point. It came via Twitter from a listener named Gary Diaz. Now, again, this is a very complicated question. So this is kind of a just hypothetical in the vacuum thing, because for this to actually happen would probably be quite the technical challenge, and there'd be a lot involved. But nevertheless, Gary asks, would a higher fidelity Halo Infinite be worth a 30 frame per second campaign for you? In other words, if Infinite was only 30 frames per second in the campaign instead of the promised 60, would that be worth a trade-off of way dialed up visual effects? Cicero, I'll go your way first here.
Well, if we're talking way dialed up, are we talking beyond 4K? Are we talking
let's
4K 30?
Sacrificing half the frame rate in exchange for a whole lot more in the visual department.
So 4K 30 with better visuals is definitely something that would attract me on my Xbox One X, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically what I can get now with Halo 5. So you're not really doing much, but on a new console, that's not enough, because if I've got a console now that can max out the performance, why am I spending hundreds of dollars, probably more than $399, Ryan, for
Probably.
a better console that will give me my flagship game at the same fidelity, at the same frame rate as the previous highest version of the consoles, the high tier console. So it wouldn't be enough on a new console for me.
All right, so you want more for your money. Miranda, how about you?
No, thank you. I want 60 frames. It's a first-person shooter. Give me that smooth frame rate. I need 60 frames at least. So, no thanks.
That's fair. See, I'm a little more old school with it, having been playing Halo since the beginning. I'm old enough to remember back when Halo was a 30 frames per second game all the time.
Right.
And so for me, yes, I make that trade-off in campaign. I would rather have a much more visually arresting campaign specifically, running it as long as that's the thing. The caveat is if it's a steady 30. If it's dipping down, then we're getting into some noticeably unpleasant territory. But if it's a steady 30, which is what Halo pretty well always was up until until 5, right? Wasn't 4? Right. 4 was still 30 frames.
4 was still 30, yeah.
Because that was a 360 game. So, right. I make that trade no problem. That's so I'm. It's interesting. I like the different opinions here. But yeah, multiplayer. That's when I'll make the trade though, and take the lower fidelity visuals, but give me that sweet 60 frames per second while I'm trying to shoot and avoid getting shot by other players. So Gary Diaz, thank you for that question. If you've got a loot box question that you want to pose to the panel, send it in. The email address is unlocked@ign.com. Finally this week, the Unlocked Block Trivia. We've got 8 minutes left in the show. This is a good one. We're talking console launches, and it's the Series X launch here. John from Black Diamond, Washington. His gamer tag, if you'd like to make a new friend on there, Roboto Donato, all one word, asks, which was not a launch title? I know Miranda hates these questions because she was a kid in the original Xbox days.
Like 9.
But what was, of the following 4 games I'm going to read to you, which one of them was not a day one launch title that's November 15, 2001 for the original Xbox? So 3 of these were launch titles. One of them wasn't. Shrek, Dark Summit, Mad Dash Racing, or F1 2001. So Miranda, I'm gonna put you on the spot, and I'm gonna go your way first. Do you have any inkling here? I don't know if you remember much of those launch titles.
Those launch titles, absolutely not. It was so small. I keep saying I just need to make a little history book of this is what happened when I was small, and I need to learn this history of Xbox so I can get this trivia, because I kind of really want to. I'm gonna go Mad Dash Racing because C is my default guess, and there's 2 racing games, so maybe one of them didn't happen.
Can't hurt. That's sound guess logic there. That's acceptable. Cicero, how about you? How's your memory, your Xbox memory hold up? I kind of was able to narrow this down. I don't want to outright say I would have gotten it for sure, but what do you think here?
So I was able to intuit the answer. I did know one of the launch titles. I did know that Shrek was a launch title for the Xbox. I remember that box art fondly. Very weird. But I think Miranda was onto something, because there are 2 racing titles, so she picked one of the racing titles. I think she picked the wrong racing title.
Dang it.
Because
maybe
2001 is in the title for F1 2001, and if you know anything about sports games, you know that the year that the game is for the next year. The year that it is. Usually, yes.
Baseball,
not always.
Baseball is an exception, and racing games are also an exception. But I'm still going with the F1 2001.
Well, your logic was sound, my friend, because yes, Cicero, that is correct. F1 2001 came out just a touch later in December, so it did miss that launch window. Those other three games were indeed day one launch titles for the original Xbox, and there you go. So let me check on the scoring here real quick before I wrap up the show. We've got about 5 minutes left. Let's see here. Cicero, you've appeared on this podcast twice.
Yes.
In recent weeks, and you have 2 points. So you're batting 1,000, my friend.
Thank you.
Well done. Brandon's still out in front overall with 7 points, and Miranda is still right there with 5 points. So
I'm coming for Brandon.
I'm so bad at trivia.
good stuff there. And again, if anybody out there has a good Xbox trivia question, nothing too obscure, please. Got to give everybody a reasonable chance. But if you've got a good Xbox trivia question, feel free to send it in. It's that same email address, unlocked@ign.com. When you send that in, please include, obviously, the question, but 4 multiple choice answers, and do note the correct one in your email. All right, just a few minutes here. I want to wrap up. Let me go to our special guest, Cicero Holmes. Go your way first. Now, we talked Star Trek a little at the top, everything you've got going on with that podcast. You want to plug your personal Twitter, anything else you've got going on? Just that you've been a wonderful addition to the podcast here on a couple of occasions so far. We'll have you back, of course. But let folks know where they can follow what you're up to.
So first off, thanks so much for having me on yet again. It's been a pleasure. If you guys are interested in anything being in the Cicero business, you can go to @StubbyStan on any of my social media platforms or all of your social media platforms. I'm there. Maybe check out some of the stuff I'm doing with the Incomparable Podcast Network @The Incomparable, The Incomparable on Twitter. Most recently, I hosted a panel for The Five Bloods on Netflix, a movie review of Spike Lee's latest film on Netflix. Check that out. Discovery Debrief @DSC Debrief. Check out Rivals of Waterdeep @Rivals Waterdeep. All of this on Twitter. And if you like the sound of this voice is for hire. So check out some of my information on my social media platforms. You can find out where you can contact me. I'd love to audition for you.
Fantastic. Miranda, how about you? What are you up to?
I am doing a lot of planning and Animal Crossing work for guides, so please use IGN Guides if you can. Other than that, you can find me @Havoc Rose, and it's Havoc with a K, on Twitter, Instagram, and everywhere else, including Twitch. Tonight, I am streaming Bioshock 2 again. It's very exciting. Unless Minerva's done, I'm very excited to get to that because the rest of Bioshock 2 is just it's fine. But also, I'm doing stationary streams on Sunday, so you can see how I plan out my week if you guys want to hang out and talk about fountain pens.
That is fantastic. I love that. I love a little just a passion that there's always other people out there that have those fun shared interests that aren't as sort of ubiquitous maybe or as big budget as video games. As for me, you can find me on Twitter @DMC_Ryan. As far as what's going on IGN, well, I did put up an op-ed at the end of the day Friday. Kind of you've arguably heard a lot of it here on this podcast, but sort of recapping, kind of reflecting back my thoughts on the Xbox Game Showcase. So you can find that on IGN if you're interested. And then we are doing our IGN First this month is on the Avengers, on Marvel's Avengers from Crystal Dynamics. So if you've wanted to see more about that game, there's a beta coming up. So check all that out on IGN. And let's see, I think that will about wrap it up. I want to say, you know what? I want to say thank you to Destin Legary. He couldn't make it on the show today, but Destin was behind the scenes. He was our technical director for the showcase and our live pre-show and post-show last week. Him and Nick Lamone, Corrado Corretto, Jamie Parslow, we had a whole crew behind the scenes. That was it is not easy to make it look that good and go that smooth as a live thing when everybody's from home. And the technical team just did a absolutely masterful job. They made my life as the host really, really easy. So thank you to Destin. Thank you to the whole team for that last week. And I think that will finally about wrap it up. And I've managed to, I think my screen didn't fall asleep behind me the whole show. I made it. I did it, you guys. All right, so for Miranda Sanchez and Cicero Holmes, I'm Ryan McCaffrey. This was the Palindromatic Podcast Unlocked, episode 454. And we will see you guys back here for plenty more Xbox goodness next week.